So Neil, how was your Christmas?
Very nice, thank you very much. I managed to avoid the war on Christmas. There was no casualties in my area.
Oh, excellent. Yes, and the world seems to have survived as well. It all looks pretty much intact out there. So ready for another war on Christmas in 12 months' time.
Yeah, it's the first show of the year, so Happy New Year to everyone.
Yeah, Happy New Year, and I'm sure everyone by this time next year will be saying what a great year 2018 was.
Well, if we can stop Trump in the November elections and we can get rid of Brexit, we may get there.
I mean, I think the world is starting to tip back to a little bit of sanity, don't you?
There seems to be some anecdotal evidence that the Liberals are starting to speak up and take action and take control of the situation.
Yeah, and speaking of Liberals, our first, we'll get this in a minute, but our very first article is actually about Tim Farron, who of course was the former leader of the Liberal Democrats over here in England. But before we get to that, your tweeting is going through the roof, isn't it? You're doing very well with your Reason Now.
Yeah, it seems to be booming at the moment. I think it's up to about 6,500 followers. So on Twitter, mainly talking about Brexit, but some Trump, climate change, science. Yeah, really enjoying it.
And did I notice a few fairly well-known people are retweeting your tweets?
Yeah, which is really nice. AC Graylin, one of them, which is really nice.
So he follows you.
Yeah, so... Well, I haven't checked if he follows me to a trip, but I know he's retweeted a couple of his tweets.
Retweeted.
Which is good, so onwards and upwards.
Yeah, fantastic. And getting on to the said article, now this is from theguardian.com, gay people's sex lives are none of Farron's business. Now, who is Farron? He is the former leader of the Liberal Democrat Party. He has had to step down because of his evangelical feelings getting in the way.
Yeah, the not so liberal who couldn't stay true to his beliefs and lead a liberal political party.
Makes you wonder why he was elected in the first place, or why he wanted the role in the first place. So the former Liberal Democrat leader's retraction simply makes matters worse. Tim Farron tells a Christian radio station that he wished he hadn't said that gay sex wasn't a sin. Because he sort of flip-flopped on that, didn't he? Yeah,
he was trying desperately to avoid the question because he's swallowed the evangelical pill in America, and eventually it got caught out and he got forced into a point where he had to say, no, it's not a sin, because basically he was going to lose a ton of votes. In this country, people don't tend to like bigots, and having a bigot at the top of a Liberal Party wasn't sitting well. So he came out and said, of course it's not a sin. And now he wishes he hadn't said that.
Yeah. So Tim Farron has said now that he regrets saying that gay sex wasn't a sin when he was Liberal Democrat leader during the last general election campaign. Speaking to Premier Christian Radio, Farron, an evangelical Christian, said that he felt pressured to make the statement. And I actually heard this. This was on the show Unbelievable, which is a podcast which I listen to because often you have a believer and an atheist, a little bit of a debate, very interesting, but sometimes it's just a believer who'll be on there. And he was on there last week talking about this, and yeah, he did say that. He said that he felt pressured to make the statement, and obviously for reasons like that you just said, but now he's gone back to, you know, his dyed-in-the-wool fundamentalist
bigotry.
Yes, that's it.
But let's give some credit to Vince Goebel, the current leader of the Liberal Democrats, who has disowned this opinion completely. So good on Vince for doing that.
Yes, there is that. So thank goodness for that. So we'll see how this pans out. And speaking of the dreaded E word, evangelical, this I found on pathos.com, and it's via the Raw story. Trump evangelical advisor finds biblical justification for shithole comment.
The Bible says, because you talking my lane now, the Bible clearly says in 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse number 8.
I've grown up in church, so let's be clear.
Well, then praise God.
Yeah,
praise God. The Bible says in 1 Timothy, and I'm happy you grew up in church. The Bible says in 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse number 8, that a man that does not take care of his own home, their own people, is worse than an infidel. We have somehow forgotten that in America that we are becoming the country of the whole entire world.
And unless you were living in a hole for the past week, you will know that President Donald Trump apparently said during a meeting, why should we let people from these shithole countries, referring to mostly African black countries, come into our country? Why can't we have people from Norway, in other words, blonde, blue-eyed people that fit his demographic? So, yeah, so far no one has resigned over the word or the sentiments behind it, and that is the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's even been doubled down on by people like Fox News, which you would expect, I guess, but they lay themselves open so easily to be ridiculed because they said, of course they're shithole countries. Why would people want to come from them to live in America? Forgetting the fact that there are 8 million Americans living around the world, which by her own definition means America is a shithole country.
Yeah.
Not that I think it is. Just small parts of it.
Every country has got its shithole parts.
Absolutely.
Now, enter Mark Burns, right? Now, this is a preacher who said on CNN that Trump had a biblical basis for calling out certain nations. Now, I'm not too surprised that this happened. It was just a matter of time. Okay, so Burns quotes 1 Timothy 5:8, which says, people who don't provide for their family are worse than atheists. And that's pretty bad. That applies to nations too, Burns said, and therefore Trump was right to call out those leaders who don't care for their own people.
Yeah, and then he goes on to say, a man that does not take care of his own home and his own people is worse than an infidel. And we somehow forgot that in America. But he was obviously just denigrating black people by the statement. It wasn't to try to use some religion.
And he's a black preacher, isn't he, Mark Burns?
Yeah.
Which is the strange thing.
And even other Christians are distancing themselves royally far away from this. They don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, so we're going to see a split in the evangelicals now in America and perhaps around the world. I don't know, because you have some who are just going to double down. Because like, no, he's our guy. You know, he's raised up by God. And I did actually hear that recently on a religious television program. They think he's been raised up by God to do God's will, or rather the evangelicals' will. And so they're just going to double down and support him no matter what he says. I mean, it makes me wonder what else he could come out with that they will then support.
Well, he did say on the campaign trail he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and still get elected. So maybe that'll be his next step to prove it, is just get out the gun and start going around. And I'm pretty sure the evangelicals would still.
Yes, and
some of them would still support him.
They're saying things like, well, you know, there are people in the Bible that were raised up like Moses. They were flawed as well, and God used them. And Trump's just being Trump. He's a flawed individual. So,
but the fact of the matter is, he's just a racist and a bigot, and he doesn't see anything wrong in what he's saying at all. That's the amazing thing. And he says he wants these people from Norway, which, like you said, is obviously white, blue-haired, blonde people. But what he forgets to mention is that very few people want to move to America from Norway because they have an excellent social system. They're social democrats.
Why would they want to?
Everything he says he hates about the world, and yet they seem to have a much nicer place to live.
And considering it was just one Democrat in the room who had reported this initially, I think a couple of the Republicans in the room are actually saying, yes, the president did say this. But now it's all blame is going on him. It's like, how can you believe the Democrat? He's our enemy. You know, so
yeah, absolutely.
He will weather this one. I'm surprised he has, but it looks like
it sits well with his base, though, doesn't it? It does sit very well with his base, unfortunately. So even if he does piss off the Democrats and the Liberals.
Yeah. It does actually reflect what they think. You know, we're the center of the universe, and everything else is a shithole. Countries we don't even know where they are.
Yeah, and a lot of the countries he's talking about, don't forget, it's America that have raped and pillaged them and made them poor countries in the first place. And a lot of them are countries that have been hit by natural disasters,
like Haiti.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things going on here.
Yeah. Well, depressing as that is, nothing could be more depressing or perhaps amusing than the Flat Earth Society. Have you heard of these people? Actually, it's several societies at this point.
Yeah, and apparently they held a conference in Colorado.
That's right. In similar ways, there are other organizations that have certain beliefs or things which they're passionate about. They will hold a seminar or a conference or a convention once a year. And Colorado apparently seems to be the center of the Flat Earth mania. So apparently they're going to send up a rocket. One of the proponents of this flat Earth theory, that the world is a flat disk, is going to send up a rocket in February, obviously with a camera, to prove that that we are all living on a flat disk in space.
Yeah, a gentleman's name is Mike Hughes, and he had planned to do it last year apparently, but the excuse for it not happening was that he couldn't get the correct permits to set a rocket off.
No.
I guess there are some permits you need to be able to do that.
But he is quoted as saying something like, "You wouldn't believe all the attention I got from that." So that's very telling. And so I'm bound to get loads of attention for this. So I think a lot of it is about attention.
Yeah, so now he says that he's found some private land in a ghost town of Amboy, California, that has a complete brand new road that he can drive his motorhome and his rocket gear to the site.
Yeah.
He says it's going to be a vertical launch with him strapped into the rocket with 6,000 pounds of thrust.
Oh, it's going to be strapped to it. Okay.
Hope it's on the outside. No. Going up to about 3 miles high. And he said he's going to get more views than the Super Bowl.
Yes. This is sort of like the rabid YouTuber sort of like mentality, isn't it? Like it's all about the views rather than what you're trying to prove.
And I really worry for the guy because this could go very, very wrong.
Well, it could actually, yeah.
And he will get more views than the Super Bowl if it does.
And no matter what he views up, obviously he'll see the curvature of the Earth if he hasn't burned up. But he'll come back down and say, yeah, it's flat.
That'll be interesting to see how he denies that, or whether he becomes a convert, because he will definitely see the curvature of the Earth.
Yeah.
From there, so it'll be interesting to see if he does survive this, what his opinion on that is. But it's really worrying that you can actually hold a conference that has a lot of people attend.
When is this all started? I mean, it's probably something that's been around for a long time. I know it was around in the Middle Ages, but I didn't think it'd be around in the 21st century. But apparently it is growing, and you'll see a lot of debunking videos on YouTube, for instance, saying, flat Earth debunked. And like, really? Do we have to do this?
Yeah. You can understand almost new conspiracy theories coming along. 9/11 as events happen, but going back to something that's so established, it just shows a lack of teaching of critical thinking, a complete breakdown of trust of the establishment, which is, in their eyes, includes science, strangely enough, when these are the most tested theories in the world. I mean, even the Greeks worked out that we were a sphere and not a flat Earth.
There's so many ways, and all you have to do is like, okay, let's send an expedition that way, and when you get to the edge, take some photos and put it on Instagram. But none of these flat earthers do that.
No, they definitely don't.
It's like, we don't have to prove it. We know already. It's a conspiracy. And you were saying before the show, about why you think this sort of conspiracy mindset has occurred.
Yeah, this is just my own thoughts on them. I've got no evidence. This is just my own thoughts. I just think that there's been a growth in the conspiracy theories because there's been a complete breakdown of trust between people and the establishment because of growing inequality, and after the bankers crash, I think people have completely lost trust with the system to be able to take care of them and keep improving their standard of living. And they're taking it out on anything that is established, whether it's a scientific fact or I don't know what else to say really. I'm talking here specifically about scientific facts. They seem to be linking the two.
The little guy against the big guy.
Yeah, and there is always the thing. It's always great to think you have some information that someone else hasn't got. As humans, we've evolved to love to impart knowledge on other people. And I found this out, and you can do it all from your laptop, living room, of conversation. Someone is trying to impart some information on you, and we also love receiving new information.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a breakdown of thinking going on here, because our brains, without a doubt, don't want to think. They don't want to work. They want to take information on face value, and you have to engage the thinking part of your brain to see if that's true or not.
And all you have to do is hear one person down the pub or whatever say, those lines of smoke you see across the sky, they're actually chemtrails, and the government is a secret government that's trying to dumb us all down by seeding the atmosphere with this stuff, and I know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who analyzed it, and it was this and it was that, and then it just spreads out of control.
It does, completely out of control. And it is easy to do this. Everyone wants to do it. Even the most critical thinking people get caught out sometimes. So I'm not laying blame at any individual here, unless they're willfully ignorant. Once you have information in front of you and you can look at that information, if your cognitive dissonance is stopping you taking that information in, then I am going to...
The real problem with this is these aren't scientists. These are people who are holding on to this belief, this assertion so much that if it were proven to them, they wouldn't admit it.
No.
Because they're sort of like held aloft in this community.
And as we as trying to be critical thinkers, if you try to share a story with them that's disproving it, that's from an expert, don't forget no one trusts experts these days. We're all fed up of experts, apparently.
Yeah, but these people, like this guy going up in the rocket, what is his name? Anyway, Mad Mike Hughes.
Yeah.
Yes. He's seen by his followers as an expert.
Yes, weirdly enough, he is seen as, and he may be an expert in getting a rocket to explode and kill himself.
Yes,
we'll find out. But
outtakes from Mythbusters.
Yeah, oh god, yeah. I just hope he doesn't do it. The thing is, don't forget, he has a vested interest. Once anyone has a vested interest in something, whether they believe it or not, they're going to double down. Because he's got a vested interest in trying to beat the number of views that the Super Bowl gets.
Yeah.
He stated that. So a lot of people who buy into any conspiracy theory, they become so heavily invested that they can't get out of it effectively.
Yeah.
It's a bit like, think of it this way, it's a bit like the priests who are so far down the rabbit hole are complete unbelievers now. They can't get out of it because they can't do anything else. That's their job, that's all they're trained to do. So they stay priests for the rest of their lives. That's why the clergy project exists, is try to help those people. Once you become so invested in something, the shame of admitting the shame of admitting it, the loss of income, your future prospects, people double down rather than...
And this guy here, this Mike, he's got a lot of fame, he's got a lot of attention, got a lot of followers. The moment he says, oh, it is curved, that all collapses. So even if he does see that curvature of the earth, he's going to say, no, I was right, it's flat. And that'll just perpetuate it. That's the problem. And he goes on to say, I should get more viewers in the Super Bowl, and that seems to be it. So, and the article ends, should things go according to plan, liftoff will be around 3 p.m. on Saturday, February the 3rd. So this is coming up.
Yeah. I don't know what's the more to say. I don't know what to say. Just...
Did you see there's another article about this very same thing in the LA Times, the earth is round and other myths. With more people rejecting traditional sources of information and the internet giving rise to a variety of alternative worldviews, the granddaddy of all conspiracy theories is enjoying a renaissance, and Colorado is its epicenter. So you've got this article as well. It goes on to say, thousands of YouTube videos claim that the world is flat. Thousands, Neil.
Yeah.
Gravity is uncertain. Space is fake. Space is fake. And the curvature of the planet is an optical illusion. Followers say this ruse is perpetuated by our powerful cabal, determined to make humans feel small and powerless. That's just what we were saying.
So here's a very simple test you can do to see if the Earth is flat or not. So find someone who lives in Australia, if you live in America or the UK or Europe, and when it's daytime where you are, phone them up and ask them if it's daytime where they are. There you go, done. Simple as that.
I suppose that's a conspiracy as well. They're in on it.
Yeah, there's so many.
But here's the crux of it. Look, a conspiratorial mindset and a deep current of religious ideology permeate the movement, why am I not surprised, which preaches that Earth was created by design, not by accident. As evidence of its shape, some reference Bible verses touting the four corners of the earth, foundations of the earth, and earth being God's footstool.
It wouldn't surprise me if there's a bunch of
that's all in the
religious extremists, knuckling down on this, because the description of the earth in the Bible doesn't bear any resemblance to what we know it looks like. It's one of the easiest ways to know you shouldn't trust the Bible.
There are others will say it proves that the earth is round because it says, I don't something somewhere that seems to indicate that it's round. Although I think what the verse they're referring to actually is more or less saying that it's a disc. So.
Yeah, so the earth is, in the Bible, the earth is a disc sitting on pillars with a firmament, which is basically a roof.
Yeah, a dome.
Which the stars are stuck to the inside of the roof. We now
and there's
know,
water behind it, which is where the
behind
flood
it,
came
where
from.
the flood came from. We know all this is all nonsense now, but I guess if you're a Bible literalist, you have to accept every part of the Bible.
Well, isn't God the ultimate conspiracy theory? Like, there must be somebody there who we can't see controlling everything and pulling the strings.
Oh, I'm surprised they don't go down that way.
Yeah. And the devil is the one making things go wrong, so you can blame it on him. Says the concept of a flat earth goes back to the Bronze Age. Later on, Greek philosophers and mathematicians like Ptolemy, Aristotle, and Pythagoras used calculations and observations of Earth's curved shadow on the moon, very clever, during lunar eclipses to conclude that the planet was round.
They did some pretty good calculations actually for that time, and they got pretty close to the size of the Earth it is now, with very basic maths.
It's amazing when you see things like that and ancient maps of the continents, and they're a little bit off, but you can tell what they are. You know, it's amazing what we were able to do when we didn't have, Wikipedia to consult.
Here's the lesson. A lot of that Greek knowledge was lost for a very, very long time. And if we carry on going down this road, if we don't pull up these nonsense now, there's nothing to say we can't go backwards as a species.
Yeah, like the burning of the library of Alexandria. You know, I don't know, was that done on purpose? I don't know. It's almost like they're planning to do that again with knowledge in general.
Yeah. And don't forget it. There you go. Here's a conspiracy for you. It does suit the powers that be for people to not be very thinking. There you go. There's a conspiracy for you.
Yeah, that is a conspiracy I might actually throw my hat into. They want to dissuade you from the idea of a God. Beyond that, as a way to control your mind. They want us to think that they aren't special, but we are. And this is a quote from a supporter of Flat Earth. So the big "they" word comes up.
Why is it
they?
Colorado? Why is Colorado the base for all this?
I don't know. It's probably just one guy or girl, I don't know, who started this thing, and they're very good at expressing themselves, very persuasive, and it's like any guru, they get the follower, and then the followers get followers, and it just goes on and on and on.
Maybe it's just all the pot. They were one of the first places to legalise pot, weren't they? As with medical.
That's true, yes. Thinking back to the South Park episode, yeah, that's Colorado, isn't it? Yeah.
I don't think they're the same sort of people.
Oh man, the world looks flat. Okay, wow, that's completely done my head in. I think we better stop there, Neil.
Yeah, I think we better. Let's go and read some science books.
Yeah, I think I desperately need some science right now. Something just to make my mind feel healthy again, because it's starting to rot.
Well, luckily we've got people like Neil deGrasse Tyson who are quite happy to call out these people. So go Neil.
Yeah, but they're all part of the conspiracy.
Indeed,
they're in on it.
Indeed, they are.
Okay, Neil. I'll see you next week.
Bye bye.